We are live, sister. How are you?
Oh, good. How are you?
I'm good. And so, everyone that's used to me on Monday nights with my buddy Nam, the spiritual bodybuilder, I am here. Nam is on an airplane as we speak. So, my friend 𝑘𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 is here. She is the exercise extraordinaire and spends a lot of her time where her passion and her heart is on the health and wellness side. So I wanted us to continue our conversation about our health and our wealth, because as I always say, we always act things out or we work it out, and we do it through our money or through our health. And so the question is where is yours acting out at? I have found that when people are super healthy, their money stuff's all screwed up. And when their money stuff is all healthy, then their health stuff screws up, because this all has to do with us processing our emotions. And Sue, I will let you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself and let her rip. Sound good?
All right. Sounds good. So yes, I am excited to join Julie tonight. Julie and I have known each other. We've worked
Long time.
together and been friends for many years,
Yeah.
and yeah, long time. And actually, when I started my business was actually also the same time that I became a fitness instructor. And I was struggling with both my health and my wealth very much at that time because it was 2009 and I decided to quit a very successful job from a financial perspective to start my own business. And as a financial advisor, you know what bad timing that probably was to quit my job in 2009 and start a business.
Or it could have been the most ideal time to start a business, because, I got to tell you, when one is under the gun, that tends to be where you just follow your gut more as opposed to your noodle, because you don't have time to sit there and think it through. And, it's kind of like right now, everyone's sitting here with like this fire hose that's just like, ah! Like everything's just coming at them and they don't know like whether to turn left or right or all in between. But when it's coming at you that fast, you have no other option but to trust your gut, which
Yeah,
is
it's
important
true.
to notice. I think it's super important. So
It's
good for
true. And
you
that's
for
what I
trusting your
did.
gut in 2009. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, and that is kind of what happened was it lit a fire under my ass because I wasn't going back to the world I left. And I was 37 years old and I had my best friend be like, "Sue, you should become a fitness instructor." And I was like, "Who becomes a fitness instructor at 37?" And then it was like, "Oh, I do."
Well,
And
and let's talk about that. Do you think like there's a ton of miserable people right now in their jobs?
oh my God.
Off the charts.
Yes.
Off the charts.
Yeah.
And I truly, truly hope that this whole thing results in people finally choosing what's true for them in their hearts. Because
Hmm.
the time is over for us to keep going to these jobs to provide lifestyles that create misery, that we spend more money or we eat more crappy food or drink more wine or more beer or smoke cigarettes. Like, enough distracting us from the life that we
Yes.
truly live. And so can you tell people like what really was the catalyst? What gave you the courage in 08 and 09 to go do that?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I don't, as long as we've known each other and been doing, I don't know if
I don't really
I've
know the
actually
story. I
talked about.
don't.
And it's so relevant, Julie, to everything you talk about what people get themselves into because in my life I was my father was great about go to school, be successful, do all these things, and my goal was always to get to that next title, get to the next salary level, and I did that.
Doing.
I was very good at that, um, and now I realize it has a
Well,
lot to do with
can I ask you something?
yeah.
So in that doing, I find particularly, well, that's not just women, because I see men do this too, that you're trying to prove something to someone in your world where it was triggering emotionally, like a not enough button
Oh yeah.
or I'm not worthy button. And you're trying to prove, I know for me, like my father used to say to me when I was younger, he used to say, "Julie, you should have been born a boy. You're good at things," because to him it was the whole old patriarchy model. And I love my dad, and I'm one of his favorites, but dad could not comprehend why a girl at the time I was a woman, but I was still a girl, right? That was being successful in life. And so I realized so much of my motivation was to prove to dad that I was enough, and that even though I was a girl, I was enough, and that I was worthy. And that's why I got my degree from Notre Dame, because my dad's dad played. I mean, I love Notre Dame. I mean,
Oh
it's a place for me. But I will tell you that for years while I was getting out of survival mode, and it was that motivation to prove to somebody outside of myself that I was enough. And really, you never actually get that satisfaction. I don't know, was that the case for you?
No, spot on with the same thing. And mine, I definitely also came from that not enough thing. So where yours was your dad wished you were a boy, I always knew that I was oh shit. Because I was born in 1971 by parents who were 40 years old, and I'm presuming based on my birth date, had a lot of fun on New Year's Eve, and then oh shit, we didn't mean for that to happen.
Oh,
Um,
shit.
yeah. And I knew that, and it was a joke. And, but as you grow up, you don't realize really how maybe that actually is affecting you, right? And so I'm quite sure all of my success driver was also about proving myself, right? I'm supposed to be here, and here I am doing these things, and look at me, get this, and so that, and I'm also a people pleaser. So when I had people working for me too, it was like I wanted to make them happy, and I wanted to help them in their career. And so all of that, though, like you said, it didn't lead to serving me to feel enough. It actually made me ill. And I was such a workaholic that I was having panic attacks, anxiety attacks, all kinds of migraines. Went to
Well,
the
it's
hospital
interesting that you say
3 days. Yeah.
migraines, because that was my catalyst too. So, like,
Mm.
we had these life experiences that were our catalysts for
Yep.
moving to the next phase. And, I was getting migraines all the time. And my dad had two major strokes when he was 57 years old. And that happened in the year what year was that? 2005.
Mm.
And it really helped me then step into going, wow, if I don't shift the way I'm doing things, I was heading down the same path as my dad, because I was so trying to prove to him that I was enough. I was becoming just like him. And I was working hard. I was pushing. I was working tons of hours. I was building my business. And yet I was following my heart on some levels, but I didn't realize how much of it was me proving to other people that I belonged at the table. And
Yeah. Yes.
and then what I'm finding is that right now, so those of us who have already gone through that are almost like the teachers to teach other people, because there is a mass awakening happening across the country and the world, honestly, with what's going on. And this jarring and this crisis, like I'm telling you, we don't have to manifest crisis in our lives to stop our suffering cycles and to create a shift. And
Hmm.
and I'm doing it now, helping people through the medium of their wealth, and you're helping people through their health,
Hmm.
and all through our own process and our own healing, right?
Exactly. Yeah, anything that like I started this Facebook group, which it kept me so committed, but I did it for other people. Like as soon as this started, and our work fitness creator Haley Stone said, "I've got some challenges. We're going to do these things. We're going to keep our community connected." Just had a little voice in my head that said, "Create a Facebook group." And so I did, and I thought it would be the people who took my classes at Full Circle Fitness and FFC. I woke up the next morning, there were 200 people there. And the next morning, there were 300. And the next, I was like, oh, wow. And,
People
and
are
I
showing
wanted
up.
to do it. Yeah. But it also made me show up, right? I did something
Sure.
twice a day for 30 days because, you know what? These people were there and, they were feeling inspired and motivated. And I got so many amazing messages and comments. But I'm like, my God, I wouldn't be the same if not for the people who are also there and participating or watching or not even saying anything, but just knowing that they're there. And it's just such a healing circle. It's really amazing to see what people are doing and coming together to keep that sanity and stay healthy and in community during this time, because that's just going to have a ripple effect.
It really is. And you know what? And honestly, I would much rather focus on how we amplify the higher vibration stuff, amplify the goodness. You know, I had posed a question on Facebook, and I was asking, I'm like, to my doctors and nurses, the people in the medical field, can you guys actually share your opinion on this video? Because I don't really know what's true and what's not true. And it was really interesting to me to watch people in their anxiety and in their fear, that they just were like, wow, like they were like lashing out at people. And I'm like, and I just commented on the fact that, you know what? I know all of my Facebook friends are good people, like good people. And I want us to hold a safe space for us all to use our voices, but yet also give love and respect. You know, like how do we find, and we can do that by like, how much of your day is being spent plugging into the negativity, and how much of your day is plugging into doing something great, like twice a day you showed up to help people with their health. And it was like all these other people showing up, and it's like, you just lifted all these people up. Like, how do we lift people up as opposed to drag them down? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't see the truth. I'm not saying that we can't unfold it all. But what I am saying is, at what point do we have to stop beating people up? It's kind of like that whole scarcity model we were just talking about, that, you know, how do we get out of responding to the world from reaction, which is scarcity, which actually in the world that I teach, that when you operate from scarcity and that push energy, that you're trying to shove something on somebody else, that just makes money detract away from you. Like, you're the one getting the pay decreases. You're the one losing your job. You're the one that your portfolio just went, you know, and it's because of what you're putting out in the world is actually then coming back right back at you. And I see that in the money side. Do you ever see stuff like that on the health side with people?
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, and I'm my own example of that too. I can, you know, admit, because I know back in the times that I was angry or full of anxiety, or things aren't working and you're angry, and then more of that negativity starts. And on the flip side of that, getting into a space where it's, you know, not to be the cliche of everything happens for a reason, but being able to see at some point why it did, right? Or what you learned from it. And then that helps you have faith the next time something crappy happens, right? And seeing that cycle happen, that yes, it does work. And so if there's people that, what I see sometimes too is people rely on a program, right? Well, I was told to do this thing and I'm doing this thing and I'm just gaining weight, or I was told to do this thing and I'm doing this thing but I'm not losing weight. And it might be because that thing doesn't work for you. So
well, and you know what? When I heard you talking, all I heard was, they're listening to these people outside themselves and they're not following their own intuition. They're listening to these people outside of themselves. They're not following their intuition. That's all I heard over and over. Like in each example that you gave, that's what I kept hearing. And it's so true, because we're not following our own gut instincts.
Yeah.
And our own gut instincts truly know the answers. Like, you really know if you're happy or if you're not happy, whether it's your job or your health or your, you know, I had somebody say to me going, well, somebody just doesn't die of cancer. Meaning, like, you probably knew for some time something was off. And if you took a really long time to get to the doctor, there was part of you that didn't want to like face what was going on. And there is a piece in the process that I walk people through that's about accepting the reality of what you've created. And I had somebody yell at me one time saying, I didn't create the cancer in my body. And I'm like going, okay, slow your roll. I get it's more difficult than that. Like, it's not, but we have to realize that we are the creators of our lives. And how we interface in the world, you know, Deepak Chopra would always say that a cancer cell develops because that cell has lost its sense of purpose. And, you know, we call in these crises from a health or a wealth perspective, and or in relationships. I've seen it sometimes there too, to create the shift, and whatever that shift is. And the more you can go inside for those answers, you know, it's kind of like we were talking about earlier. It's like, when you're being triggered from not enough and you're being triggered from I'm not worthy or I'm not loved, that means you're depending on somebody else to do that for you as opposed to you doing it for yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
you're never actually going to satisfy that button inside unless you do get it from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's been my experience. I don't know. Have you ever seen any of that before, Sue?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, myself, making lots of decisions in life around to do something or not to do something, to leave a job, to leave a relationship, to become a fitness instructor, to do, whatever those things are, all of those messages, and realizing that, yeah, it comes from here. It comes from here. And just like you said with the fitness, listening to external sources is like if you are in such anxiety and frantic state and desperation of wanting to get healthier or lose weight or do this or that, and you are seeking these answers somewhere else, it may not be the right one because what works for you may not work for me, may not work for the other person. And your body knows what it needs, even down to like, I think of this silly example, but it's something I've realized. There was a period of time, all of a sudden, I started craving broccoli. I'm like, why am I craving broccoli? Like, I know I'm not pregnant.
My daughters crave broccoli.
And I started to realize that like I really crave broccoli every time I am not feeding my body well. If I'm, just eating on the go or oh, I haven't had enough vegetables or I haven't had balance or I've eaten something that triggers my system and I was like, screw it, I deserve this cheese today,
Well, and
but
you
I
know,
crave
it's so
what I
true.
need.
Well, and I know having 4 children, I remember reading this book that told me that just put the foods on the plate that the child sh should want the nutrients of, but children know how to self-regulate already what needs to go in their body from a nutrition standpoint. The problem is we try to impose, it's that push energy again. We try to
Yeah.
impose, but if we actually tune back in to your point, like your body was saying broccoli, but how many times do we not listen to the broccoli? Instead, people grab a bag of chips. I still will
Right.
say that the first time I walked into a grocery store with this whole pandemic thing going on, and the only aisle that had nothing down it, the whole aisle, it was the potato chip aisle. And I was like, but the whole fruit and vegetable section was completely full. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, what is wrong with this
Crazy.
picture? Like, this whole thing is about building your immune system, and the only things that are gone are all the potato chips and the box
That's not helping.
pasta and the things that don't have the nutrients in it that are actually going to help you to not get sick. Like,
Exactly.
and we are so disconnected from those natural tendencies. If anyone wants to read anything up about this, one of my favorites is Ayurveda. That's what Deepak Chopra really talks about. That's his line of work. He's a Western medical MD, but practices the old Indian medicine called Ayurveda. And Ayurveda, I practiced with Deepak for years. And it really helps you get back in tune with your body so that you can listen to your body's signals and those kind of
Mm-hmm.
things. Because, you're somebody who's more self-aware on a physical level because you became a fitness instructor. Not everybody
Yeah.
is that physically aware. I know for me, a lot of my stuff acted out in my health because I had the wealth side mastered, that mine acted out on the health side. And for years I was disconnected because I didn't realize how much I pushed. I didn't realize how much the caffeine that I was drinking was disassociating me from my own body's needs, and like little things, that push you back into that push energy, push, 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 as opposed to going, I guess I do maybe need some broccoli, but how would you even know that if you're not in tune, right?
Right. And if we're always in this panic mode and always keeping, especially during this time when people are trying to keep themselves busy and distracted, right? And you're not really hearing what your body is telling you or realizing, like when you talk about Ayurveda, I did a cleanse. My friend Monique is a health coach and she put me on this cleanse that I did with her. And when she gave me what I was supposed to do for like 2 weeks, I was like,
Can
are
you
you
tell us what
kidding me?
that was?
Yeah,
Like
it
what kind
was.
of cleanse?
Um,
Like share with people, like what's a good cleanse?
Yeah. So it was a 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐵. So and it comes from Ayurvedic practices, and the idea is that it's this combination of rice and split yellow mung bean. So I guess the split yellow mung bean is like a detoxifier.
Very
And
much.
I was like,
Yeah, you find that.
I gotta eat this for 14 days? What the I can't do that. I can't, like, what? I couldn't eat like something I love, like buffalo wings for 2 weeks. I can't do, but she gave me all these ideas, and I actually varied it up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and made it a little different with healthy things like, herbs or lemon juice or this or that. And I freaking love this stuff. It is so good. But that aside, I have not in years felt like there was a night I laid in bed, and I have in life struggled with anxiety and been diagnosed many times as ADHD. I
That's
laid
why
in
you're a
bed.
good entrepreneur. I personally think that all these ADHD and ADD, all the drugs for those are killing all the future entrepreneurs. Because I think to be a great entrepreneur, you have to balance all those balls at one time. Like that's where your skill set of having ADD, that's where it's really helpful.
And
Mhm.
those drugs scare me, and I don't want to take them. But when I did this cleanse, I laid in bed one night and I had a moment. I went, oh, this feels normal. Like I just felt so at peace,
It
and I
grounded you.
wasn't worrying about the thing I said to someone earlier in the day, and I wasn't worrying about my to-do list, and I wasn't, you know, racing. I just laid in bed and I felt good and happy.
That
And
says a ton.
it's an Ayurvedic uh, practice. It's that Khichdi cleanse is based on Ayurveda. So that was what reminded me of that, and I still love it. I'll still just eat it as part of my, what I make.
Right,
But
right.
trying that 2 week thing, well, it was amazing, and it really put me in tune with how foods affect you. Right? You really start to learn.
Well, and I will tell you that another one of those great resources out there is Dr. Mark Hyman.
Mm.
He has a 10-day detox book that if you're really trying to like cleanse and clear, and he does it all through food, just like how you said, because food is medicine. I'm convinced. And, all these companies that produce all these processed foods, they actually have food scientists on their team of how to actually make your brain more addicted to sugar and the products. And they said that your brain actually, and Dr. Mark Hyman teaches this, and he's got all the research on it. He says that your brain actually lights up 30 times more from sugar than it does cocaine.
Whoa.
Like, that's crazy. Like, it's off the charts. And Dr. Mark Hyman, what he did is he hired a bunch of food scientists now to create these recipes where the foods actually interact with each other to be the catalyst for burning and getting the bad stuff out of your system. And it's stuff that my kids will eat. And I had someone who was helping me out years ago when my 5-year-old was younger, and their job was once every 3 months was to make the 10-day detox menu. And my kids ate it just like because it's regular food. And I'll never forget the night that I was sitting there at my kitchen table, and my kids, it was a bed of arugula and salmon with like these sauteed onions, but it was what you sauteed them in, and they were red onions. And my kids were like eating arugula. I was like laughing, going, I cannot believe my kids are eating arugula. But it was something about the sauce that it wasn't salad dressing you used. It was a sauce, and they loved the arugula with the sauce. Like, it's because it was very savory because of how the foods were mixed together. And that's the same thing of the Khichdi stuff that you're talking about. It's how that stuff all blended together. It actually nourished your taste buds. So you're like, give me more. Give me more.
Anything else. Yeah.
Right.
And that was what I learned so much from Monique as a health coach, because in my head too, it's like you get caught up in these habits of eating, right? I'm supposed to have this for breakfast, lunch, and dinner at these times, and you're not creative.
Water a day.
Yeah. And I just didn't know what to put together. And so, the cleanse was amazing, but just working with her to teach me these new ideas was like, I never would have thought of putting these things together. And now I will open my refrigerator on a day where I normally would be like, well, I guess I'll order a pizza, and be like, ooh, I could put that with that and make this healthy thing, because now I know more, and my body, it has a taste for how different things go together. So it's worth learning these differences so that you can treat your body in ways of going, not going, I hate this broccoli, but doing it in a way that your
That you
body
love it.
will.
Like
Yeah.
my 6-year-old won't eat broccoli or won't eat vegetables to save her life. But then the one day I decided to roast the broccoli, and I did it with some olive oil and some salt and some pepper. She's now requesting the broccoli because she likes it roasted. And I'm
Yeah.
like, so I wasn't steaming it anymore. Like she likes it with the salt, the pepper, and the oil on it. And I'm like going, done. So now that's the way we eat broccoli as a family, because I can get my 6-year-old to eat something green. You know?
Perfect.
Well,
Yeah.
and maybe
See, I
if
always,
you don't mind, would you mind like sharing that 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 recipe with us, and maybe put it on juliemurphy.com for us? So maybe we
absolutely.
can
Yeah.
put
I'll
it
put
on
it in the
there. So
comments of this post. And yeah.
yeah, and we can put it on there so people can get access to this stuff. And
Yeah.
I just think it's so important that we support each other into this new place, that we can now get to, that brings us to better health and better wealth. Because I'm telling you, it's all vibration, it's all energy. And
Yeah.
when you are, there's the physical side of yourself, there's the emotional side of yourself, there's the spiritual side, and the mental side. And you need all 4 of those areas of your life to be harmonized. But if you're not eating well, or if you're in financial duress, like, it throws everything off. Because if you're physically not feeling good, then it's going to affect your mental, and that's going to affect your emotional. And then that's when we attract things into our lives that we just don't want to have. And we're going, why do I keep repeating these patterns?
Yeah.
And I talk about all the time that Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's a biologist, he talks about in his book, The Biology of Belief, he talks about how 97% of our response to the world comes from our subconscious mind, not our conscious mind. And our subconscious mind is fully developed by the time we're 7 years old. And we don't realize that this is how it all happens. So how you're handling money, how you're handling your health, relationships, everything. It's coming from your subconscious mind. So you have to do those things that help to move things along and get you to a place to where you're not recreating these suffering cycles that I always talk about.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, because it does. Like, I can see a lot of places in my life that suffering cycles were recreated, or things where I was drawing people or things into my life that, like, why does this keep happening? And then until you really get it and do the work, then it becomes this huge eye opener, like, oh, it's me. But it's doing that deep work and figuring it out. And that's why you have to stop and, give yourself that time and space to do whatever that work is, to identify where that crap is coming from.
Well, and that really boils down to self-love and self-care, right? Particularly if you're a giver, or if you're somebody that really does for others before you do for yourself, really, you got to think of it like the oxygen mask on an airplane, where put it on yourself first, then your kid. And it's because to some people it's like, what do you mean? Like, I want to take care of my child. It's like, no. Self-love and self-care first, because you're no good to anybody if you're coming in half-baked.
It's true.
Like, you're no good to anybody. And it's like, where is that coming from? Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed, like, with people that they really actually are calling in the crisis in most instances to shift their lives?
Oh, I think so. If I even look back on my own experiences, there's some things that I've been through that I'm like, why the hell has that happened to me? But when I look back on how I've learned and grown from it, it's like, well, I guess I needed a smack that hard, because that smack didn't work and that smack didn't work. So when this truck came along, I finally woke up.
So I talk about that in my first book. My first book's called Emotion Behind Money. And I talk about that the 2x4, you can tell, like, I have brothers who are carpenters. The 2x4
Yeah.
comes in and keeps cracking you over the head until you finally say, I'm done. Like,
Hmm.
and that hit will get harder and harder and harder. And
Yeah.
there are signs all along the way. you didn't get to bankruptcy in your financial world overnight. It's called keep repeating the patterns that keep repeating. One of the biggest challenges, I think, is that we are not actually accepting the reality that we've created. And we're not living from our heart space in most instances. That we keep negotiating ourselves away. We keep like putting other people first and not listening to our own intuition. So did you find, Sue, that when you actually started to make these shifts in your lives that people were not real happy with you that you were shifting because they were used to you showing up in a certain way? Or did people fall out of your life or things like that?
Definitely. There's friendships, there's relationships that I've been in that, when you start to put those boundaries up and then people are like, "Oh, well, wait a minute. I was in charge in this dynamic before." And it's realizing like, "No, I've put up with this for way too long. And now that I'm going to actually respect myself, you're pissed off." Well, that means that you're not part of my life anymore, and that can be at a very, small acquaintance level. It could be a friendship level. It could be a serious relationship level. And all of those things have happened. But, you see those things that say, if someone's pissed off when you're setting boundaries, they weren't meant to be, they're not serving your life in the way that you deserve to be served in life, and that energy.
It also is very interesting to me that when people do get pissed off, how they try to manipulate it like it's your fault.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, no. See, this goes back to why you need the balance, to the harmony between your mental, your emotional, your physical, and your spiritual. Because the fact that if you're trying to change, you're trying to shift. I talk about that where I give the illustration of the crabs in your bucket, where if you have one crab in a bucket, it can climb out by itself, no problem. But if you put 10 crabs in a bucket, all the other crabs keep trying to pull you back down in. And those are the people and the relationships that we have in our life. And that if you're going to the next phase, everyone's probably not going with you. And it's okay that you just let it go and let it go to the wayside, because you know what? Done is the day of being manipulated, twisted, told you were wrong. That if you're following your own gut and your own instincts, there is nothing ever wrong with that. And anyone who is not going to support you making that change in your life, then recognize it from the get-go that they've got to go. Yeah. It's like I told my daughter the other day, I said, she goes, "Well, can I get this really big, I want the big thing from Starbucks." And I'm like, "Well, if you want to be a big person, get the big drink or the large size." And she goes, "Well, I don't want to be large, Mom." And I said, "Then maybe you get the size that's appropriate for your stomach." And she goes, "Oh." I go, "Honey, I always ordered the large fry, the big gulp drink, the super size. That was always me." And I go, "And I was super size. I mean, I'm 70 pounds lighter today than I was at my height." Yeah. But holy bejesus, like you really become the sizes that you eat. Like I've started, I'm not using a regular dinner plate. I use like the lunch size plate, and I get plenty of food and I'm fine, but it's like these are all the little tweaks, and people who aren't going to be supportive of that, let them fall away. And, but we have to realize how we've created this reality.
Letting it happen. Well, just one more of this, or, well, next time this will be better, or, oh, this seems to be getting better, and next time I'll handle it differently, but no, you just have to move over it, move past it, change something, because those are the signals that are telling you, that this isn't working, this isn't right. Listening to that gut, right. And it is the fitness stuff in lots of times of my life has truly saved me. And it's hard, if I can't say that if I wasn't the instructor. Like, I'm the instructor, so I have to be there, right? I can't just decide.
That's true.
I have a bad day, I'm not going to class. I have to go. And so at some of the hardest times in my life, I would say I would not allow myself to be like, I'm going to call someone to cover me. Like, nope, you got to do this because this is the sanity bringer. And that's if you can even just, if you're going through these times where you feel like you're stuck in this place and you can't make a hard decision, I think that's where it helps, because it helps you get out of your head and think more clearly, even if it's
Right.
just going for a walk. If you can do that, it changes your brain from that sitting in a space that is wrong. um it just breaks up that thought process, I think.
Well,
And
and you bring up a good point about where it's like wrong. Like, I want people to be really cautious of not creating more shame, blame, guilt, and judgment around it. Because like there was one day as I was on this journey losing this last chunk of weight that I've lost, that I remember the one day I was like, you know what? My daughter's like, Mom, let's make chocolate chip cookies. I was like, game on, because it was one of those kind of days. And I think I ate 10 cookies, and I hadn't had cookies in months. And you never feel good afterwards, but
oh yeah,
it was just like, okay, I've made a decision. I don't really actually want to live like this anymore. And so, and I just let it go, because
yeah.
I know that if we let it linger, it just creates more havoc, because that's where we have to remember, like, our subconscious mind, our history, and our memory is all stored back here in our amygdala. And our amygdala holds on to things, and that's what causes us to repeat the patterns. So we got to get more to present moment awareness and respond here from our frontal lobe. And sometimes when you have trauma points, you can't really get through that as easily. And so there are a lot of tips and tools and techniques that you can do to move you through some of those things. And
To like shift from here to here.
yeah, like one of them I was talking about last week, that it's called havening. Have you ever heard of havening before?
Yeah, watching that one was this
Yeah,
exercise
where
that
you cross right here so that it gets your right and left brain. So first thing you do is you name the number from a scale from 1 to 10. How bad is that thing triggering you? It could be a person, an event, or even the coronavirus. So if you're in a place of anxiety and you're being triggered, or you're angry or sad, it's coming from it's usually not the instance that's going on right here and now. It's going on about something that happened from your childhood, something that happened in a prior experience. And what you do is then you cross and you just go down your arms 20 times. And what that does, it actually aligns your heart meridian while using both sides of your brains. That's what the crossing thing does.
because of the cross connection.
Right. So you were talking about like having anxiety. So like you're triggered, you have anxiety. Like what I've noticed in my healing process is that when I do this, spend 20 times, then you pick the number again afterwards, I'm always at a 1 or a 2 after I do this 20 times. It's crazy how it changes your physiology in like less than a minute. And you're like, how does that work? And what it's doing is it's taking the trauma point, it's retraining your muscle memory and your memory in your mind to pull you into the present moment from your past. And it's a really great tool for people to move through things. So if you can start to get to a point where you're recognizing whether you're acting stuff out, like let's just say you're like at home and you're being triggered by stuff and you're like, I'm going on Amazon, I'm going to buy some stuff. And I'm going to, and I'm going, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to show you, and I'm going to spend $300 right now on Amazon. And just go, oh, I'm triggered. And then go, one of the tools that you can use is like, just leave it in your shopping cart for 24 hours.
Yeah.
And, and people have heard that before, but it's like, how do you shift the trigger? Get to the havening, shift the trigger.
Try that.
Yeah, it's amazing. So if anyone out there is triggered, like my kids trigger, I'm sure pets trigger people, right? Because pets are they're furry kids, right? And like there will be a time that it's not convenient for you to have whatever experience you're about to have with your pet or your child or a sibling or a parent. You do that havening, and it works every time.
So if you start seeing people in Zoom meetings, they're like doing this because they're really doing havening and they don't want you to see it.
Well,
where'd you go?
Be like, I'm just hugging myself over here. Don't mind me. I'm just giving myself some self-love. Oh my God, how true is that statement? But you know what? You know what? The best part about it is laugh about it.
Yeah,
Step two is a higher vibration. So
that's true.
are you gonna be doing any other uh more 30-day 2 times a day?
I am. So actually, I don't know if it'll be 2 times because I did it was great. And I was so proud of myself that I did it. I did the plank in the morning and the dance at night.
Oh,
But then also
awesome.
with my schedule, I was like, okay, feeling really, dedicated to being there twice. And then I kind of fell away for a bit and I've still been doing some dancing and sharing other people's workouts and things, but I want to be more present in the group again. And my friend Angela is doing her own other push up challenge. So I'm like, okay, I'm inspired to do this one now. So now I'm bringing her push up challenge into the group and helping her with a hashtag challenge she's doing, Lift Your Spirits, which is a great message and everything we need right now. So she's got me back on track to, I'm committed now to do the 30-day push up challenge. And there's a few breaks in there.
That's
But that'll bring
awesome.
me back in on a daily basis. And it was a great
30-day push-up
practice too in
challenge.
going live.
Can you give us that information? I'd love for, people
Yeah.
to come to juliemurphy.com and go under our toolbox. So that's another tool to help you with your health. And
Yeah.
let's and when you start your next one up, I'd love to, let our audience know on awakening your health, because to me, none of us are getting out of any of this. It's like
Yeah.
we have got to do our work. We have got to shift what is stuck in our lives, whether it's your health or your wealth or your relationships, and stop operating from a place of fear and scarcity. It's
Hmm.
time for all of us to thrive. And it's time for us to stop operating in a place of polarity and duality. And I understand that there's things that are going on in the world that are more positive and there's more negative things, but do everything with love and compassion so we can get everybody to this healthier space. Because in the end, that's all that matters. And I'm not going to be Pollyanna about the whole thing. I get that there are serious issues. I totally get that. But I really want people to start to reconsider how you're approaching things in your life, because I guarantee you what is going out in the world from your mouth, your thoughts, and your feelings is what's coming right back at you. And so you really have to take a look at that, because everything is energy. Everything. Like, they now know that certain diseases have certain megahertz. I read in Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the
Awaken.
Habit of Being Yourself and Creating a Whole New Mind. And he
Yeah.
talks about in there that there are these megahertz. So like diabetes is at 52 megahertz, optimal health, I think it's like 66 megahertz, and cancer is at 44 megahertz. Like, they know the vibration of diseases. And so it's like, well, don't operate then of those emotions and everything that are at the same vibration as that. Don't use the words that are at the vibration of the diseases. Like, everything is vibration. And you can see that, like, if you look at anything scientific, this is what quantum physics and all this stuff is all about, that everything is energy. Einstein proved that. And we just need to start to apply it. And so exercising and choosing to, like, I always talk about from a debt perspective, right? Debt is all about your financial past. All this stuff in your amygdala back here. It's like, debt is your financial past choices, and it weighs you down so that you can't live in the present moment nor plan for the future, because you're so stuck in your past. And when you're
Hmm.
stuck too far in your past, you wind up in a state of depression. When you're way too far in the future, then you're in a state of anxiety, because you're like, I wonder what this is going to happen. I mean, how many people are in anxiety mode, you know, with everything with the pandemic? And it's like, just do what you got to do to ground yourself and to come out of that anxiety so you can make a decision from present moment awareness, and not something that's repeating your past or giving you too much anxiety for the future. And that's just about self-love and self-care you know
It's so true. And the positivity spin. I mean, like you said, yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff going on out there, but all you can do for yourself, the worrying and the yelling at people on Facebook posts or the, getting angry, that's not going to change anything, right? So why not have peace within yourself and find that positivity? And just like how the negativity and the negative energy begets more negativity and disease for yourself, same as with social media, right?
Oh,
Like what I
so
noticed
true.
about doing
It's
this.
the most passive aggressive thing out there.
Yeah. And the more you engage in the negativity, the more it's going to show up. But the more you engage with the positivity, like doing these challenges and this fitness stuff, it just took over. Like, wait, all I'm seeing now are people dancing and singing and doing planks, and it's great.
That is
Days would go by.
awesome.
People would be like, "Did you hear this?" And I'm like, "I haven't seen the news on Facebook in days. I feel wonderful." Like, you create your echo chamber. So
Oh, that's a
participate in
beautiful statement.
positive things.
You
No.
create your echo chamber. That is a good quote. I love that one. And you do. So it's like, I said to somebody the other day, like, oh, I just can't stand this negativity of people in my newsfeed. I'm like, unfriend them. Like, I don't want to offend them. I'm like, unfollow them then. They don't even know about it. It's like,
Exactly.
just like start, when people, like, I am not a person to fight politics. Sometimes I vote Republican, sometimes I vote Democrat. I am like, I'm just trying to follow my intuition in the moment and not trying to go by like a stern, and if you're one way or the other, that's great. That's fine. That works for you. But people, when they get in these political fights, I'm like, delete. I'm like, because I just don't want to get into it. I don't want to, like, that's just not my cup of tea. But, and I've noticed, like, I had this one person, just really strong Democrat and just lots of views about everything that's going on with Trump and everything. But she worked herself into getting sick.
Oh,
She literally physically got sick. And I said, your heart is clearly passionate about everything that you believe in from the Democratic side. I go, can I ask you why you're staying in the job that you're in? And maybe are you supposed to go work for the Democratic Party maybe? And he was like, you think I can? And I was like, I go, I am watching you go off the charts. And the problem was she works for this company that's totally Republican, like in everything that they do. And I'm like going,
constantly triggered.
and constantly against what's aligned with her own inner knowing. And so guess what was happening? She hadn't had a raise in 5 years. She wasn't getting bonuses. People underneath her were starting to make more money than her. This is what happens from a financial standpoint when you don't align with your inner knowing and your inner heart. Like, I see this happen so often. But that's where I think times like this really takes applying more creativity and more innovation to come up with what it is that you want to be and do in the world. I had somebody say to me today going, Jewel, I think we're leaving Illinois. And I was like, tell me more. And they're like, well, we kind of wanted to have this call with you because we know you would just help us figure out a way and how to do it. And
Yeah.
we didn't want to talk to anyone who wanted to tell us to stay close and stay here because we just want to go. Like, we can't stand being in the suburbs anymore. We can't stand, living this suburban life. They want to go feed their heart and soul. And I'm like, where are we going? And I just helped them. My whole session today was with brainstorming of how they can make that happen. And you know what? Which has actually kind of led me to, I don't know if I told you about this, Sue, but I'm creating these courses so that I can teach people in groups how to do that, how to now start to create more, because to your point, like how you did the group exercise stuff, I'm going to be doing groups where I can pull people together so that we can create more of the vision of what you want to create in your life, and then how to start moving down that path to shift your life. Because Awakening Your Wealth is the title of my second book, but it's not necessarily about money. It's about embodying what I call a life living in a state of being that's called real wealth, to where you're happy, healthy, and that you have the money to live the life that you want to live. And that may or may not be a ton of zeros in being wealthy. Because I've met people who are worth $30 million and they are not happy.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone who doesn't have that amount of money always thinks they'll be happy once they get all that money. And that is rarely the case. And I see this over and over again. And so, you know, kudos to you for creating all that high vibration with that class. And I look forward to, you know what, I'll do your next challenge with you. I bowed out on the first one, but I will do the next one. I have a little bit more confidence in my health perspective.
You did your reverse plank with your kid. You did that one.
Yeah, remember that. I can figure out how to do my bench presses. So I bench pressed. Oh my God, I bench pressed my 5-year-old who's like 50 pounds. And I was bench pressing. He thinks it's the funniest thing. He says, Mom, it's time to get your exercise. So he just stands up like this and he comes over and he just lays down and I bench press him. It's the funniest darn thing ever. It's great. That
was the cutest. You're strong because that's a lot. That's a lot to bench press. And when they're moving, it was like a stable force.
and it was 10 pounds heavier than what I was bench pressing in the gym before we actually wound up on our stay-at-home advisory.
Yeah. But it's a lot safer when the kid falls on you than the barbell.
Oh, very much so. It's all fun, so it's creating more fun and laughter in my house. And then my 6-year-old's like, Mom, can I do it? I'm like, no, you're 60 pounds. I can't do it yet.
That's next level challenge. But then just like the groups you're creating, it's that, you know, the community then of other people who are also, you know, it, again, not to be cliche, but it's the whole we're in this together thing, right? You find your people and you find others that are going to help you be accountable and that are going to cheer you on, and you're leading that charge with people who, like those clients, know that you're not going to say, well, my financial advisor rule tells me you shouldn't do that. You're going to say, no,
can I tell you, I've had more referrals from people who work with financial planners where those planners or those finance people, those brokers, have told them, I'm sorry, you don't have enough money, you can't do this. That drives me bonkers, because that to me is more about self-preservation of a portfolio that I get money off of every quarter, as opposed to what is the right thing for my client. I had someone who was a Chicago cop, and I was the 4th financial planner she went to. And I go, well, what hasn't worked with all these other financial planners? And she said, I need to leave the police force. And I said, okay. I'm like, what do you want to do? And she goes, well, I just know I need to leave. And I know I'm 3 years short of having a full vested pension. And I just got to go. And so as I kept talking to her, I kept going, what's this trigger? Like, what is really her compelling reason for shifting? And I finally got out of her that her life partner, he was killed in the line of duty, and she couldn't walk in the station anymore because it reminded of being at work with him. And it was killing her. It was physically killing her. And she just couldn't go back anymore. And I said, okay, well, why don't I tell you how much that to sustain your life the rest of your life and take a shortage of a pension, I'll tell you how much money you can have on a monthly basis. And then we figure out how to live from there. And she goes, so it's a possibility? I'm like, anything's possible. She wound up buying a place in her favorite place out of state. And she went and moved there. I didn't even know she was moving. Like, that was never part of the plan. And she wound up actually buying a local ice cream shop. And it spit off like 50 grand a year for her on top of the other things that she had. And it's 15 years later now. So she's now in her late 60s and she's happy. That's what it's all about. You know, she started, kids love ice cream. Like, talk about shifting from a pile of poop to something that actually, that she didn't know she was going to do that. You know? And so, you know, it's super important that you just stay open. Like, you don't know where life's going to take you, but have the courage to actually say that my heart's telling me I can't do this anymore. And I'm not really sure what that looks like, but I know this ain't it. Right. And I think we're shoved in our faces. Like, I heard that, I saw some statistics that domestic violence is off the charts right now. And because the relationships that you're in are in your face now.
Mm-hmm.
And when are you going to self-love and do self-care and actually decide to shift your life? Because you can. You
Yeah,
just have to love yourself enough and decide that you're going to change your patterning. You know,
absolutely.
because it's patterns on both sides, patterns of the abuser and patterns of the victim. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
no longer going to choose to be a victim, you won't be abused. And I know it's
Yeah,
not that easy. I get it. I get it's not that
no,
easy.
it's not.
You know,
But
and it takes a lot, but um just know that if you're going through a rough time right now, whether it's your health, your wealth, or your relationships, you're just being called to make a change. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I want people to take away, you know? Like
yeah,
from a
yeah, it
health
hurts my
perspective,
heart to think,
I know.
because
It's not
there's people in
easy.
stuff pots right now, and I actually overheard a situation in my building, and it just it you know, and you think about what that person is going through of I heard overheard a verbally abusive situation in the hallway, and it was so triggering and heartbreaking, and I thought, like, that person going through that during this time probably thinks, oh, I can't go anywhere, I can't find a place. But you can. You know, you can find a realtor, call somebody up, find somewhere to go, talk to someone like you about the money situation, you know?
Right. Yeah,
Um,
lots of people stay in those relationships because of money.
mhm.
A lot of people do. And
Yeah.
you know what? I am telling you, there is always another way. I have helped people out of the stickiest situations to get to a life that they love. And then that's where bridges over to your health, because then you wind up healthier because you're choosing you. You know, it's really, really important,
Hmm.
you know?
Makes all the difference.
Yeah, it really does. Well, Sue, if anyone wants to tune into your next program and stuff like that, how do they find you?
Yeah, I'll put the link to the Facebook group in the chat in the comments of the Facebook
Awesome.
Live, and anyone is welcome to join. It's such a wonderful group, and people, we share different fitness formats. And I'm going to be going live every day to do our push-up challenge. Sometimes I'll do a dance, a work dance, or a little bit of a class, and there's all kinds of things. And so that's the other thing I would love to leave people with as well, is during this time, even if you don't feel like working out, put on a video. Just watch someone exercising. Find something that resonates with you, because even if you just sit down and start watching it, you might find yourself just wanting
You
to,
just gotta give this little groove, right?
exactly. Even if it just makes you smile, watch someone else do it. Maybe you'll start to participate. But now's the time to figure that out, because you know what? People are afraid of going to the gym, and oh, what if someone sees me doing this thing that I don't feel comfortable doing? No one's
Don't
watching
let your
you.
freak flag fly in your house. You'll like let it
Exactly.
all hang out that you may not do in a dance class.
Right. And then by the time you can go back, you're ready.
I love it. Well, thanks for being spunky. Like, I love your energy. It's just like, can you imagine dance class with Sue? Holy bejesus. Like,
Oh, it's so fun.
raise
You
the
need to
roof.
come one
Whoop, whoop,
day.
whoop.
We'll have a good time.
Oh, that's awesome. And again, everybody, come to juliemurphy.com. The biggest thing that I want to provide to everybody is tools and resources to get you through whatever area in your life that you're stuck at, so that you can create more of the life of sustainable, real wealth. And just join my YouTube channel. Like, we're going to be posting these on YouTube. This is all about us getting more information to you and more resources to live your desired life. And so join us again next Monday. Sue, thanks for stepping in for Nam here this week. And we are so
I'm
grateful.
honored to be the stand-in guest. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. And everybody have a great week. We'll see you soon. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.